Imran Khan, you got to play Borderlands 3. After all that, the grand conclusion is...
That, you know how everyone was like, hey, that looks like more Borderlands? It is absolutely just more Borderlands, but that's not a bad thing.
But that's not a bad thing. Was it Boring Lands?
It was not Borderlands. It was straight up, hey, these are all the lessons we learned from Borderlands 2, and this is the, 5 to 6 years we've spent fixing those games, making them better and bigger and refining that formula to... what I think is actually a fairly pitch perfect idea of that concept.
That's great. Yeah, they had a stream yesterday, and I watched all of it, and it's amazing how much gameplay they showed. I think they're really being aggressive with this marketing rollout, which is kind of fun to see. But it definitely started with hey, here's the opening of the game. Here's Claptrap telling some jokes that are pretty hit and miss. And it's okay, this really is more Borderlands. Yep. But then I think as the demo and the gameplay progressed, and they get to the city on the new planet Promethea, which is the head of the Atlas Corporation, apparently. It's oh, this is looking different. And then even before that, I guess, when they showed off a spaceship, which is your little portable home base you're using to fly to all these different planets. The spaceship, of course, is called Sanctuary 3. It's oh, here's some different things. This is actually...
Mass Effect Borderlands?
I mean,
that could be cool.
Any game that has a space station home base, I am twice as interested in.
Sure.
You know what it actually reminds me of, not instead of Mass Effect? It reminds me of Wolfenstein 2.
Oh, interesting.
The big ship tanker thing that you're in.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just not a huge thing. You can, it's about the size, I would say, of Sanctuary 2 in Borderlands 2, but it's it's a very nice little homey area, and you can make your own base that's naturally themed after your character, but you can set it up with weapons and decorate it as you want, kind of the house in Breath of the Wild.
That's super fun. And they have
cool.
a lot of little gizmos in there, a slot machine that if you lose, it pops out a grenade, like they showed in this stream. Or they also have a vending machine that just spits out all the loot that you might have missed while roaming around the world.
Yeah, which I think is a great thing.
Well, yeah, that's really good.
Borderlands is kind of bad. Even during the demo I played when I beat the boss, the thing you're supposed to collect from the boss fell on an inaccessible area I could not get to.
But maybe they intentionally did that so they can show off the new system.
I mean, I had to do some weird jumping to kind of just jump up and grab it at the height of the jump. So it kind of worked out, but it's nice to know that if that does happen, I'm not completely screwed.
Right. So how much did you get to play then? Walk through what you played of the game.
So I played about 90 minutes. They put you in a story mission where you're landing on Promethea, which is the planet that Atlas is based on. So the story of this game takes place after Tales of the Borderlands. So Reese is already he's head of the Atlas Corporation. Handsome Jack is gone and dead, and the AI is gone. All that stuff has already happened. So the rival company to Atlas, Malawan, is holding a corporate takeover of Atlas by trying to lay siege to it. You're landing because Malawan has made a pact with Tyrone and Tyrene, the main villains, and you are trying to put a stop to them and get Reese's help to solve the rest of the vaults.
This is
so
some
it's
of
a
the
very
same
cool
stuff.
thing of you meeting the Atlas army.
This is some of the same stuff that was on the stream, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
but you
they
played a
showed
little bit
the
more than
beginning
that?
of that.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
So eventually you meet Zero, and you and Zero work through a lot of the enemy army to get him a new sword upgrade that can cut through shields. And with that you get into the actual you get to meet the AI, which is the boss of that level of the Malawan army, and defeat that thing. Yeah. So it's a couple of story missions. It's basically going from place to place and fighting arenas of enemies until you get to the boss.
Yeah. From the gameplay, it definitely stood out that, all right, you can slide, you can mantle. Mm-hmm. It's oh yeah, I guess it's been a while since Borderlands 2. I think the FPS genre just assumes you can do those things in a lot of cases now.
So they made a big deal about that in the presentation, and I was wait, that wasn't in there? They also made a big deal about loot instancing, and I was wait, that wasn't in Borderlands 2?
No.
You're just and it's not really a big deal for games now, but I guess for Borderlands it is.
But it's optional. There's a weird the balancing thing that's going on here too, right? Where it's okay, it'll scale depending on the co-op buddies that you're bringing in. So they're still doing the same amount of damage, and it'll look right to them. But in your game, it won't just be all right, I brought in this level 20, and now they're just walloping all these level 5s.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure people are a little bit mixed about. But
yeah, I mean that was one of the things I don't know. It felt like cheating a little bit, but I did have fun if I was way behind. I would jump into a friend's game and I would level up right away, or like vice versa. That was always kind of fun.
So you can turn it off
quickly.
You can just play it as Borderlands Classic mode, and you can go into a lower level or a higher level and just play like it used to be.
That's awesome.
Best of both worlds, I guess.
Yeah, that was a lot of their messaging, at least in that stream yesterday of Randy Pitchford going out there. And by the way, it's very interesting. They're still putting Randy Pitchford front and center, but he loves it. And he does a fine job.
I'm surprised he did no magic tricks.
Yeah, but he did introduce himself, which was a bit of a magic trick in and of itself.
Coming out on stage.
They did not tell anyone he was going to be there, so I found that kind of interesting. Like when they were telling me who I was available to interview, Pitchford was on the list, even though he was very clearly at the event.
Yeah,
interesting. But anyways, part of the messaging was like, hey, we're here for the gamers, like split screen, you can play offline, there's no microtransactions, there's going to be some campaign DLC out there.
Which is not correct, to be clear.
There
are microtransactions, just not gameplay affecting ones.
Oh, what?
Really?
That wasn't clear at all.
So there's skins and cosmetics.
And they are microtransactions?
Yes.
You're 100% on that, 'cause that's insane.
Like, the flat line of there's no microtransactions is not a correct statement. You can you can buy hairstyles and all that stuff. Like, you can pay money, but it's not going to be like, you can't pay for guns or stuff like that.
That's insane, because he got out there and he's like, yeah, we're going to have like different hairstyles and like cosmetic things, but there's no microtransactions. That's what he said.
Yes.
But then he was like,
what he means is loot boxes.
Okay.
It's a statement that plays very well, but it's not strictly correct.
And everybody cheered for that too.
Of course.
Yeah, which is the thing you say now. But
that's a new marketing thing. Yeah, that's what EA does. They're like, hey, this game has no microtransactions. It's not normal. It's not a normal game from us.
That's just dumb then, because now the marketers know it and they just like have to like, oh, we'll say this, but there's that little caveat to it, and technically we're right-ish.
So you got to talk to other developers for Borderlands 3 then?
I did talk to the lead producer, Paul Sage. We talked a bit about the game and like where they got inspiration for like various things of like the loot instancing, what they're gonna do about, or how they really take on a Borderlands 7 years later when games like Destiny and The Division have come out in the meantime. They think that like Borderlands should stay Borderlands. Like people complaining that, oh, this looks exactly like Borderlands 2 7 years ago. Like that's kind of the point to them. Like they want to make the best Borderlands they can, not make the best Division or Destiny they can.
And a smoother, more ambitious Borderlands 2, like I think there's going to be a huge audience for that. It's weird that I think gaming is in a state now where it's like, I don't really want some progressive thing that's going too far outside the box. Like I think being a little conservative on the aspect for a game that's been away for so long, I think people are going to love that. It's easy messaging.
I was a little underwhelmed initially during that presentation. I was like, oh, they're just showing off vaulting. It's like they're just bringing things up to speed. But then they showed off more of the gameplay, and I was like, you know what? Actually, I think I'm excited for this. I think I want to, just because like the action looks fun and silly, and they kept rolling out like, here's a new gun, and if like when you're playing, you get that many crazy weapons, like I'm on board for that. Like that sounds fun.
In the trailer, they showed a like rocket launcher that you can steer, and it's like, all right, I'm on board for that. Also in the demo, they showed a gun that fires like sound bullets and stuff.
Like, wavy.
Yeah, that looks different and cool.
Did it feel good too when you were playing?
Yeah, everything felt great. Like I normally they only let me play with the controller, and I always played Borderlands with mouse and keyboard, but it was still like fine. It was perfectly all right. I was playing a little bit of co-op with somebody else, and like we managed to tear through the enemy fairly easily without having like there's no real sense of auto aim as far as I could tell, but I was doing fine with that controller, and I was really surprised.
It looked that way in the trailers too. It looked like the enemies were a little bit weaker in general. There was maybe more of them, so it was like kind of enemy fodder, which I think generally I like in shooters, just kind of mowing through guys, and rather than like the bullet sponges in Division.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked to Paul Sage, who's also the creative director, right?
Right.
Okay.
And I also talked to the art director, who mentioned something very interesting to me. Like, you know how the Borderlands 3 art style looks exactly like Borderlands 1 and 2?
Right.
It did not always. The initial experiment they had with that game was a lot different. And like they had he pointed me to a GDC talk they did where they were showing like some crosshatch, like a different kind of art style that looked way more like an illustration, but they decided it didn't look enough like Borderlands. So they went back to the old art style for it, but the initial thing apparently looked much more comic-like than this current version.
That's interesting. Huh. So there's a tease of that in the old presentation somewhere.
In the GDC talk from this year.
From this year?
So I need to go actually look at that GDC talk and see what it looked like.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious what that version looked like. I'm Borderlands 3 that looked remarkably different. I'm very curious how that is.
I'd be on board for that, honestly. But at the same time, they're probably doing the right thing because just watching their presentation, every time a character would show up for the first time, all the fans would scream.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a strong community behind that game who really loves that fiction and that world and those characters and probably wouldn't want to see them like too different.
Yeah, they can't go back to the original Borderlands 1 art style that we featured on the cover of Game Informer back in the day, which, Imran, do you know this fun little fact?
I did.
Oh, that it was
Go
a different
ahead.
art style? But no, deeper dive than that. That originally Borderlands was called Pandora.
Really?
Yeah, and when we featured it on the old issue of Game Informer, which I wasn't around for. Were you, Reeves?
Yeah.
Okay. The legend I heard from both Randy Pitchford and Andy, I believe, was that Andy didn't want 2 P titles back to back because we just had Prototype on the cover.
Yeah.
And Andy didn't like the name Pandora, and then Randy Pitchford's like, oh, okay, we'll change it, we'll go with Borderlands. Not that Andy named it, but I think he was part of the reason that it shifted from Pandora to Borderlands.
Yeah, he was not happy. He didn't like the name Pandora, which I was like, it seems fine.
It was a pre-Avatar
He was like-
world.
But he was like, it's a bad name. And he was pushing on him to change it. And they
That's
did.
wild.
And it's not the only game name he's changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, maybe the other ones are secret. I don't know any more than that.
I don't know.
They were actually telling me a little bit about the art style change too. Of like when they initially showed it to Randy Pitchford, they're like, "What do you do? Like this is weird." It was like felt like an 11th hour change to him.
Okay.
And then they had to all take it to Take Two, who was also very concerned. Like, "What are you guys doing? This is insane."
That's very bizarre. What do you think about the comedy in the game overall?
I think the writing is overall better. I don't like Claptrap. I will never like Claptrap. Any attempts to make me like Claptrap make me hate him more.
Randy Pitchford at some point during the demo said, I don't know how you guys feel about him, but I still kind of love Claptrap. Like, I don't know, maybe just people weren't laughing in
Internally,
the
I
room.
booed.
At the same time, he still feels like Claptrap, better or worse. I mean, it's
Yes.
like making the Claptrap jokes.
Uh-huh.
So people who like
Yes.
Claptrap, here he is.
There he is.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
I mean, I like there's like death rattles from enemies now that are actually really funny. Like, I killed one random soldier and he just like says, "Oh, I learned nothing," or I killed one who says, "To be fair, I was kind of a monster."
That's good. Yeah, I think I was outside of the Claptrap stuff in that, demo that they gave yesterday at the presentation. I was like, okay, I think it's a little bit funnier than I expected, having like the user agreement, like the Windows 95
that was
prompt on the
cute.
screen, stuff like that. It's like, okay. And then it's like, I guess like the Calypso twins, they're going to be like obnoxious streamers is kind of the hook with them.
Yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
a
know
little-
that that's going to last the entire game.
Yeah, a little
Did you
skeptical
see
about
more
that.
of them than we saw in the presentation?
I saw a little bit like some interjecting during cutscenes and like through echo tapes and stuff like that, and they have that Borderlands quality of like very good and natural voice acting.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know, like we'll see how the dialogue goes. I ended up really liking Handsome Jack in Borderlands 2. Like he was the sole redeeming factor of that game's writing for me.
Yeah.
We'll see if like the twins are as good for me.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Any other big takeaways we didn't hit for Borderlands 3?
Let's see. The main character actually like has personality and talks now. So your character will like respond during dialogue and like it's clearly a generic response and the characters respond as if anybody said it.
Yeah.
But you get a bigger sense for who the characters are. Like I played as both Zane and Amara, and Amara's dialogue is very like machismo, like I will smash whatever's in front of me kind of way, while Zane talks in like a kind of hilarious like he talks in circles and somewhat like he's drunk. It's pretty funny.
Huh. All right. You can check out Imran playing on an episode of New Gameplay Today, which should be on the site right now. That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.